They told you that truth is power, that honesty will earn you love, respect, and success. But Machiavelli never believed that. And if you've lived long enough, maybe you don't either. Because truth makes you exposed. Honesty is an invitation, and full transparency. That's like stepping onto a battlefield naked, while others come armored and smiling. This isn't evil. It's human nature. A stage where everyone wears a costume, and the first to undress is the first to bleed. Machiavelli, the most honest man about dishonesty. I saw this centuries ago. He didn't tell you to fake it. He told you to wake up. Because in a world full of masks, taking yours off first isn't noble. It's suicide. You can keep your morals, but you'd better know when your morality is being used against you. Not every honest man loses. But in the biggest games of life, the winners aren't the most transparent. They're the ones who know when to speak the truth and when to sheath it like a weapon. If that unsettles you, good. Because discomfort is the first symptom of waking up. If you've ever been punished for trusting, if you've ever watched a liar rise while you stayed still, then maybe it's time you stopped preaching virtue and started studying Machiavelli. Not to become ruthless, but to stop being ruled by people who only pretend to be good. You say you're honest. You wear it like a badge. But let's take a closer look. Have you ever told a white lie just to make someone feel better? Nodded in agreement when you didn't agree, just to keep the peace? Smiled in public while bleeding inside? That's not weakness. That's survival. That's the silent contract we all sign, to keep the illusion stable. Machiavelli wouldn't call it lying. He'd call it adaptation, because even the most righteous among us edit their truth every day. And whether you admit it or not, you're already doing what he taught. The only difference, you're doing it defensively, subconsciously, without owning it. He once wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." That wasn't cruelty. It was recognition that the world shifts. And if you refuse to shift with it, you become a relic. Let me paint you a scene. You walk into a negotiation. You bear your numbers, your timeline, your intentions. You think honesty will build trust, but the other side smiles and takes notes. And when the deal is done, you're the only one who lost ground. What happened? You confused openness with strategy. You forgot that truth. Like power must be handled with calculation. You don't have to become a liar, but you do have to stop assuming that honesty, by itself, is a virtue in every room, because even your integrity can become a weapon in the hands of someone smarter than you. This isn't about deception for deception's sake. It's about clarity. Clarity about the world you actually live in. A world where your truth is just another asset. And every asset needs to be protected. So the next time you hesitate to hold something back, to word your truth more carefully. To stay silent instead of exposing yourself. Don't feel guilty. Feel strategic, because like it or not, you've already been living by Machiavellian logic. You just didn't know it had a name. Politics isn't built on truth. It's built on narrative. On carefully sculpted myths that don't have to be accurate. They just have to feel real enough and comforting enough to keep the masses believing. Machiavelli knew this, and it terrified those who wanted politics to be noble, because when you realize that power belongs to the storyteller, not the truth teller, you start to see the world differently. He once wrote, "A man who wishes to profess goodness at all times will come to ruin among so many who are not good." It sounds cruel, But it's not cruelty. It's a mirror. Let's revisit that election. Two candidates. Alex tells the truth. He warns about inflation, economic downturns, international risks. He's honest, rational, predictable. But he loses. His opponent, James, doesn't give you facts. He gives you a dream. He promises safety, growth, unity. He doesn't explain the storm. He paints the rainbow after it. And he wins. Why? Because, as Machiavelli put it, men are more often moved by the things that seem than by those that are. It's not just politics. It's everywhere. In job interviews, the most confident candidate often beats the most qualified one. In business, investors throw millions at a founder who knows how to pitch, not the one buried in spreadsheets. On social media, influencers win not because they live better lives, but because they package them better. What the world wants is not the raw truth. It wants a version that moves them, that makes them feel safe, hopeful, inspired. Machiavelli didn't shame this. He understood it. He accepted that in public life, truth must be curated to survive. Because people don't live in your conscience. They live in your image. And if you want to lead, you must master the language of image, not to manipulate out of malice, but to navigate a world where emotion beats logic 9 times out of 10. So let me ask you, have you ever told the truth and been called negative? Have you ever predicted something hard and they labeled you cynical? That's not on you. That's on the story. And the one who masters story doesn't just lead people, he shapes the world they believe they're living in. So the next time someone tells you, just speak your truth, ask yourself, do they really want the truth? Or do they just want a prettier story? Because in every room of power, the man who moves people emotionally moves everything. Every man wants to be powerful. Some chase strength, others chase intelligence. But very few understand what Machiavelli taught centuries ago. True power doesn't come from being just one or the other. It comes from being both. A prince must learn how to be both a fox and a lion. Why? Because strength without awareness is reckless, and cleverness without force is impotent. The lion roars. He charges. He fights off threats. But he steps blindly into traps he can't even see. The fox, meanwhile, doesn't fall into traps. She sees everything, every lie, every angle, every setup. But when the wolf shows his teeth, she has no way to bite back. Machiavelli saw what most men never do, that survival, real survival, demands a dual nature. You must be brave enough to strike, but smart enough to know when not to. You must be able to sense a trap and become the trap when needed. Look at history's most dangerous men. Napoleon faked retreat when he was weak. He let his enemies believe he was finished, and when they relaxed, he attacked from the shadows. That's not manipulation for ego. That's timing. That's knowing when to let them think they've won, so you can win everything. Or, take Steve Jobs. He distorted reality around him. He made people believe the impossible could be built, and then demanded they build it. He was the fox bending perception. He was the lion demanding results. And that's why his legacy didn't just live, it dominated. But what about you? Where do you fall? Do you hide behind clever words, avoiding hard conflict? Or do you swing with brute force, unaware of the game behind the curtain? Most men pick one mask, and they get eaten by the other. The fox gets crushed by violence. The lion gets destroyed by deceit. Machiavelli warned, The good man who lacks cunning is doomed. The feared man who lacks strategy is fragile. So what's the answer? Be unreadable. Be the kind of man who keeps them guessing. The man who smiles like a fox, but moves like a lion when it's time to strike. Don't announce your power. Show it when it counts. Don't bark at everything. Don't slither through everything. Shift. Switch. Adapt. Because the moment they can predict you, you've already lost. In war, in love, in leadership, in life. Those who only roar get outplayed. Those who only scheme get crushed when the storm hits. But the man who trains both instincts, who hides the beast and the brain behind silence, he doesn't just survive, he becomes untouchable. Everyone wants to be seen as good, to be respected, admired, trusted. We crave the praise. He's honest. He's kind. He's authentic. But Machiavelli saw through this. He didn't ask, "What do they say about you?" He asked, "What do you need them to believe?" He wrote, "It is not necessary for a prince to have all the virtuous qualities, but it is very necessary to appear to have them." Let that sink in. It's not about being good. It's about looking good enough to be followed, to be supported, to be protected. Because people don't judge you by your truth. They judge you by your optics, by your posture, by your mask. And in a world obsessed with surface, the man who fails to control his appearance gets destroyed by those who do. Look at Julius Caesar. He didn't scream, "I am emperor." He turned down the crown publicly. He bowed to the people. While pulling their strings in private, he kept the illusion of the republic alive even as he hollowed it out from the inside. Why? Because the illusion of legitimacy keeps the crowd calm. The game hasn't changed. It's only gotten better lit. You see it now on every timeline. The boss who talks about transparency while playing politics behind the scenes. The influencer preaching self-love while spiraling off-camera. Hypocrisy. Maybe. Effective. Absolutely. Because the public doesn't want your struggle. They want your story. They don't want your raw doubts. They want your curated clarity. That's why Machiavelli never told leaders to abandon morality. He told them to weaponize the appearance of it. If you show mercy too early, they call you weak. If you admit doubt, they lose faith in you. If you speak the full truth, they say you lack vision. So what's the alternative? You become strategic. You present strength when you're calculating. You offer hope when you're unsure. You display virtue. While keeping your real motives protected behind layers, no one's allowed to peel back. This isn't lying for sport. This is survival. Because if you walk into the crowd and bare your soul, they won't understand it. They'll weaponize it and crucify it. But if you craft your mask, if you understand how to shape perception before you seek understanding, you'll move through the world untouched. This isn't a betrayal of who you are. It's a recognition that identity itself is a tool. And in the battlefield of leadership, tools must be sharpened. They must be intentional. They must cut through illusion faster than others can see through yours. So ask yourself, are you chasing actual virtue, or are you chasing the appearance that makes others feel safe? Because the man who tries to be fully authentic in a world built on performance ends up broke. Broken. Or invisible. Not because he was wrong, but because he refused to adapt. Machiavelli wasn't telling you to fake it. He was telling you to lead it. To master how you're seen. To wrap your principles in armor. Not to hide them, but to protect them. And when your values are made of sharper steel, you don't need to announce them. They speak for themselves in how long you last. Some truths are too uncomfortable for polite society. This is one of them. Cruelty now can become mercy later. And what feels like kindness today can create disaster tomorrow. Machiavelli said, "It is much safer to be feared than loved." If you cannot be both, he wasn't glorifying fear. He was recognizing its function. Because love is fragile. It's soft. It bends under pressure. But fear builds boundaries. And boundaries are what keep chaos out. Imagine a leader who wants to be liked. He delays hard conversations. He avoids confrontation. He tiptoes around the problems. What happens? Disorder, resentment, and eventually, collapse. Now imagine a different leader. One who acts quickly, decisively, even harshly when the moment demands it. The crowd may flinch, but the system holds. The damage is contained. The greater pain is prevented. This is Machiavellian compassion. Confront early, so you don't have to destroy later. Think of Napoleon. He didn't restore France by asking politely. He acted. With speed. With force. Because the alternative wasn't peace, it was anarchy. Now, look at your own life. You've seen this play out before. Someone on your team keeps failing. You stay silent. You hope they'll improve. You want to be nice. But the cracks grow. Morale drops. Others pick up the slack. And by the time you speak up, it's too late. The damage has spread. That's not kindness. That's cowardice. Wearing a smile. We confuse being nice with being good. But real goodness sometimes requires sharp words, tough calls, uncomfortable truth. Machiavelli didn't teach cruelty for cruelty's sake. He taught it as a clean cut, to avoid a deeper, more infected wound later. This is leadership at its most counterintuitive. The knife today may save a life tomorrow. So ask yourself, are you being kind because it's right? Or because you're scared? To be clear, are you delaying the damage or preventing it? Because silence isn't mercy. Avoidance isn't grace. Sometimes, the only compassionate act is the hard one. The fast one. The one that earns you frowns now but keeps the system alive. So don't ask, will they like me for this? Ask instead, will this stop the bleeding before it's too late? No phrase in political philosophy has been more abused, more twisted, more misunderstood than this one. The ends justify the means. People hear it and recoil. They imagine dictators, tyrants, cold-blooded manipulators. They think Machiavelli gave the world permission to be cruel, but they're wrong. He wasn't saying, do whatever you want, no matter who it hurts, as long as you get what you want. That's sociopathy. Machiavelli's meaning was much harder and much more human. In The Prince, he wrote, in the actions of all men, and especially of rulers, when there is no court of appeal, people judge the outcome. In other words, when no one is coming to save you, when no higher power will intervene, and you're forced to choose between bad and worse, then the outcome is all that matters. Think about Julius Caesar. Crossing the Rubicon wasn't just controversial. It was illegal. It was a declaration of war on Rome itself. But had he not crossed it, he would have been politically destroyed. His enemies would have dismantled everything he built. So he acted. He broke the rule to prevent the collapse. And in doing so, he didn't end the Roman Republic. He laid the foundation for an empire that brought order for nearly 2 centuries. Or take Abraham Lincoln. During America's Civil War, he suspended habeas corpus, a fundamental constitutional right. Was it legal? Questionable. Was it necessary? Yes. It helped preserve the Union during its most dangerous hour. He broke the rules to protect the whole system. This is the Machiavellian dilemma. It's not about whether your method is pure. It's about whether your result prevents collapse. Because morality without outcomes is decoration. But outcomes without thought become tyranny. So no, not all ends justify all means. But some ends are too important to be lost just because you were afraid to make a hard move. So let me ask you, if your family was starving and stealing could feed them, would you do it? If telling one lie could save your company, your team, your mission, would you stay silent? If one broken rule could prevent a disaster, would you break it? The world isn't black and white, and Machiavelli never pretended it was. He simply asked you to be honest. Not about your values, but about your responsibilities, because in the real world, you're not judged by the intentions you whisper to yourself. You're judged by the fire you walked through and whether others survived because of you. What matters is not the speech you gave, not the impression you made, not the applause you earned. What matters is what you protected, what you preserved, what you built that endured. Intent plus outcome. That's the Machiavellian balance. So no, this isn't a license to do anything, but it is a demand that you stop pretending you can lead without getting your hands dirty. Because if the system collapses under your watch, your perfect intentions won't matter. Only the rubble will remain. Power falls, money moves, status rises and falls. But reputation lingers. It follows you into every room before you even speak. And Machiavelli, he knew it wasn't built on truth. It was built on illusion, curated with precision. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." That sentence is your greatest warning and your greatest advantage. Because people don't care who you truly are. They care about what they believe you are. And belief shapes response. Response shapes opportunity. Opportunity shapes power. Look at Henry Kissinger. Some called him a peacemaker. Others, a master manipulator. Both views existed. But no one denied one thing. He moved history. He understood the most brutal rule in diplomacy. Perception buys you time, and time buys you leverage. He could broker peace in one room while extending war in another. Not because he was reckless, but because he knew what mattered most wasn't consistency of character, but consistency of result. Your reputation is not built by telling the whole truth. It's built by choosing the truth you reveal, and when you reveal it, controlled disclosure. That's the game. Not manipulation for chaos, but storytelling with a purpose. In a world full of noise, your myth is your signal. Your legend is your leverage. And if you don't shape it, someone else will. The public doesn't watch your process. They don't read your intentions. They follow the signals you send, your tone, your timing, your silence. That's why smart leaders build public masks that don't lie, they focus. Masks that are engineered to direct attention. Not to deceive recklessly, but to protect what truly matters, the outcome, the mission, the meaning behind the method. So, what does this mean for you? It means if you try to be completely transparent, completely known, completely explained, you'll lose the very power that allows your reputation to survive. Because people don't fall in love with facts. They follow narratives. And the more coherent, the more commanding that narrative becomes, the more unshakable your influence grows. Machiavelli didn't say to lead carelessly. He said to curate carefully. So ask yourself, what story is your image telling? What does your silence communicate? What myth are you letting form around you, and is it serving you or stealing from you? Because in the end, you won't be judged by the full context. You'll be judged by what lingers in memory. By what sticks? By what echoes in a room after you leave? Your reputation isn't just your history. It's your projection. It's the shadow you cast into the future. So shape it, sharpen it, protect it. Because power may be temporary, but perception is everything. Machiavelli said many things that sounded cold. But this was warm in its own brutal way. He believed in loyalty, but not the kind that's blind. Not the loyalty that comes cheap or easily. He believed in loyalty that is earned, selected, and tested not from the crowd, but from a chosen few. He wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." Why? Because real power isn't just built through dominance. It's multiplied through trust. Not public trust. Private trust. The kind you don't post. The kind that doesn't need performance. Look at Napoleon again. To the people, he was mythic. To his enemies, terrifying. But to his marshals, he was clear, direct, honest. He didn't need to perform for them, because they had earned access. And in return, they gave him something far more valuable than applause: unbreakable loyalty. This is the paradox. You deceive the many so you can be real with the few. You craft your public myth so you can tell the truth behind closed doors. And in doing so, you build a fortress, a circle where masks aren't required, where truth becomes your resting place, not your liability. The businessman with one trusted partner who finishes his sentences, the general who confides in one captain who sees what he misses, the leader who has two allies that tell him what no one else dares to say. These aren't lucky accidents. They're forged through time, through challenge, through scars. Loyalty, when cultivated right, becomes more than comfort. It becomes armor. It's what lets you breathe when the world is demanding a version of you that's polished, filtered, and bulletproof. Because even the strongest man needs a place to collapse, to question, to doubt without being dethroned. And only those inside your inner circle should ever witness that side. Not because it's fake to hide it, but because it's strategic to protect it. So ask yourself, do you have people around you who see through the smoke? People who don't clap because it's expected, but because they know what it cost you to win. Do you offer that back to them? Have you earned loyalty that isn't bought with charm but with character? Because Machiavelli knew the power you project to the world is limited, but the loyalty you build in private, that's what sustains you when you're most exposed. Deception protects you, but loyalty restores you. And when you choose those few wisely, they become your greatest weapon. Not because they follow you blindly, but because with them, you no longer have to pretend. So here we are, after masks, after strategy, after watching the game unfold through the eyes of a man who never blinked in the face of power. You've seen what most people refuse to see, that the world does not reward the honest man. It exposes him. It doesn't praise truth. It weaponizes it. But if you're still here, then some part of you has already begun to change. Not into something fake, but into something aware. Because awareness is not cynicism. It's survival. And strategy is not betrayal. It's protection. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince for monsters. He wrote it for realists. For those forced to lead in a world where being good is not enough. And being naive is a death sentence. He wasn't preaching cruelty. He was revealing clarity. He wasn't celebrating deception. He was decoding it. He wasn't telling you to lie for fun. He was telling you this. That truth, in the wrong hands, becomes a noose, but in the right hands, your hand's truth can be shaped into a sword. So ask yourself, are you willing to trade your comfort for clarity, your illusions for precision, your need to be liked, for the strength to be respected? Because if you keep playing fair while others play to win, you won't just lose. You'll be forgotten, buried beneath the weight of good intentions. That built nothing. But if you learn the rules behind the mask, if you understand the theater of power, the alchemy of perception, the exact moment when silence becomes your loudest move, then you don't just survive the game, you bend it. So let this disturb you. Let it challenge you. Let it burn away the softness you thought was virtue, but was really just vulnerability dressed in politeness. And remember this, the world doesn't belong to those who speak the most truth. It belongs to those who know when to speak it and when to hold it like a hidden blade. So if this message stirred something in you, if it cracked a piece of your old self, if it made you sharper, quieter, is stronger, then don't just like this video. Prove you've awakened. Subscribe and carry this with you. You were never meant to be a puppet of virtue. You were meant to become the architect of your power.